The mill rate for two properties was $75. The tax paid on property A was $2,250 and on property B was $1,800. What was the value of the two properties? This is a good example of where I can use the T. So I'm going to draw out a T for property A and one for property B. Each property had the same tax. It says the mill rate for the two properties was $75. Well, if a mill is equal to 0.001, all I need to do is multiply 0.001 times 75, and I get a tax rate of 0.075. That works for both properties. I also know what taxes were paid on each property. If you think about it, the amount of tax we pay is a percentage of the value of the property, which means that it's going to be the smaller number. So on property A, the taxes paid was $2,250, and on B was $1,800. Now I have a number on the top and a number on the bottom. I can divide $2,250 by 0.075 and come up with $30,000 on property A, and I can divide $1,800 by 0.075 and come up with $24,000 on property B. Now it's asking the value of the properties. It's also important to know what value we're talking about. In both cases, this is the assessed value of the property. So there's a relationship between the tax rate, or the rate of tax, the taxes paid, and the assessed value. Again, it's good to start writing out and labeling things just so you can see the relationships build, because most students who struggle with the math don't know where to start. So if you consistently label items, it'll give you an idea of where to begin. A property was assessed at 33% of market value. The rate was $5 per thousand. If the homeowner actually paid $165, what was the total value of the property? The question's asking for the total value of the property. Now, I see that I have $165. If you had to guess, what is that? Well, the $165 is the taxes paid. And I know the taxes were paid at a rate of $5 per thousand. With those two numbers, I've already learned that I can figure out the assessed value of the property. And I know that the total value of the property relates to the assessed value. So let's figure out the assessed value first. I go to my T and I take $165 taxes paid. I'm going to divide that by my rate of $5 per thousand, which I can write as 0.005. That's going to give me an assessed value of $33,000. Now it's important to note this $33,000. The question's asking for the total value, and that's not the total value, that's the assessed value. So I need to go one step further. The assessed value is one portion of my total value, which makes it the smaller number in my T. So I can divide that by the percentage of assessment, which in this case is 33%, and I can come up with a total value of $100,000. Which is the answer that the question is looking for. A property was assessed at $100,000 with a rate of $25 per 1,000. The next year, the tax rate was reduced to $20 per 1,000, and the assessed value went up by 25%. The taxes would. So we're trying to see what happens to the taxes if we change these two variables. We need to do a T for each year. The first year, we know that the property was assessed at $100,000. So that's our assessed value. The tax rate was $25 per thousand, or 0.025, which means that the taxes paid on the property, which I can find by multiplying the two numbers on the bottom, was $2,500. The second year, the tax rate changed. It was reduced to $20 per thousand, or 0.02. And the assessed value went up by 25%. So if it was $100,000 and it went up by 25%, that would make it $125,000. That means the total taxes paid in that scenario was $2,500. So between the 2 years, the tax amount stayed the same. A property was assessed at 25% of market value. The rate was $5 per 1,000. If the homeowner actually paid $150, what was the total value of the property? The $150, again, represents the taxes paid. And there is a relationship between the taxes paid, the tax rate, and the assessed value. So that's a good place to start. The tax rate was $5 per thousand, which we can write as 0.005. Again, that's the tax rate. And I also know that the taxes paid was $150. I can use those to find the assessed value. So I'm going to divide the $150, since it's on top, by the tax rate of 0.005. $150 divided by 0.005 is $30,000. Now have I answered the question? And no, I haven't, because it's looking for the total value, and this is only part of the total value. So I need to do an additional t. The assessed value is one portion of my total value, which makes it the smaller number. So I'm going to put that on top, and we know the assessed value is 25% of the market value. So my assessment rate is 0.25. If I take the $30,000 assessed value and I divide it by the 0.25, I come up with a total value of $120,000, which answers my question.